I am a director for a Fortune 5 company. I'm head of strategy, and I'm 26, and I oversee hundreds and hundreds of people and make the technological decisions for them in their platform. So one thing that I found that is when I go to these meetings, I am by far the youngest person there, like by 20 years. But it's because of my experience growing up. I've been blessed with a lot of good experience, and I know how to modernize a company tech-wise. My question for you is, if you are going into a meeting with a millennial with this kind of title and these kind of responsibilities, do you have any tips? Do you have any insights that you could share with me of like what you expect from me, right? So that I can hold myself up to converse with these folks, right? Because I don't want to walk in and be like, oh, it's a millennial, right? Like, and especially it doesn't help, you know, that I got this title that, quite frankly, a lot of 50-year-olds didn't get, right? That they wanted. So that's my question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we actually addressed this a little bit this morning, in my opinion. It sounds like you have a very impressive record of accomplishing things. And I think ultimately we're all people, and what we really want to know is, do you care about other people? And so the number one thing that you could probably do in that is represent the customer well, and make sure that you come across humbly, and that you're there representing the customer and not so much about who you are and what you can do. So everybody will be impressed with your title because of your age and just because you're doing big things. But if you have that humble spirit about you in the room, I think that's the number one thing that somebody could ask from you.
Yeah, come into the meeting with the attitude of what can I learn from these other folks every time. Like if the guys on your team, the younger guys on your team came to those 50-year-olds and were like, hey, how did you get so good at this? And they had that attitude. If you had that attitude going in every time, and it sounds like even the way you ask your question, you kind of do, but have an attitude of what can I learn from these folks? And then get there a little early. But get there a little early, see who's there, and be like, hey, what do you do here? How long you been here? Like, ask a bunch of questions, and then afterwards, stay after and ask them the questions that are in your head so that they are like, oh, this guy doesn't think he knows all the answers already, because obviously none of us do.
Yeah, the reality is I don't expect anything different from you than I expect from anybody else. One of the biggest things that we have been creating on our team is a environment of feedback. It's a lot easier when people solicit feedback exactly like what you just asked for than for me to just out of blue give them feedback. So the more that we can create that culture, and it starts with you asking for feedback, like Luke is saying, but the more you can create that culture in your organization, it's a lot easier when people are pulling feedback than when I'm pushing feedback on top of you. So that, I think, has been really key in helping me with so many young people on our team. It's just so much easier for me if they get in this habit of asking. And that's something at the end of every check-in I have with my leader. I said, okay, here's time for my 3 cheesy questions, just in that exact voice. And I say, is there anything about my personal brand that I'm not aware of that I should be? Is there anything about the EntreLeadership business that I may not be thinking about that you're worried might be a blind spot for me? And I just literally go through my questions. So I would say for your specific question, continue to solicit feedback and be humble and be open to, you know, learning from everybody else in the room. For everybody in the room, I think the more you can coach your folks on asking for feedback, and that gives you space to say, be on time. Maybe you can record Chris Hogan saying that this week and play that for them, you know, at a frequency. But it'll make your life so much easier. You know, it's exhausting sometimes feeling like you're being nitpicky and you got to tell everybody all the things. So my number one tip is coach your people to solicit feedback. Make space for those conversations, and that will make your life a lot easier because they're asking for it, or there's a holding spot where it's just we all know, okay, this is the time where we talk about feedback.
I just want to say this real quick. The question is really brilliant, and it's for the whole room, especially I'm thinking about your 25-year-olds that are coming in, you got these 55-year-olds. Let's be really honest in the room right now. There is a generational gap, and when he walks in the room in those meetings, you feel the tension sometimes, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's shaking his head. So we got to acknowledge that that exists. So here's the deal. Everybody touched on it, but I love this question. if I could teach anything to young people that are coming in their 20s and they're working with people generations older, likability. You got to build relationships first. And there's something about being young, you're the eager beaver and the tail's wagging, and you want to prove that you belong, right? So we long for credibility first. However, credibility is given. Like I can't make Luke give me credibility. No matter how hard I try, I can't force Luke to think that I'm credible or show me the respect that I think I deserve. What I can do is make Luke like me. If I'm relational, I'm humble, all the things I talked about. So I think you got to win relationally before the meeting, after the meeting, beyond the meeting. And all of a sudden they go, here's a kid who's humble, as you said, who's asking questions like Sarah said, and they genuinely like you. And when likability is established, relationship, then trust, credibility is transferred. But that's how it works. You all know this. You're shaking your head at me because this is relationship 101. But we get in a corporate setting and your challenge is, I get it, you want to belong. But I think the best thing you could do is be quiet in the meetings and talk a lot afterwards, right? Relationship, the stew out of those folks. And you'll see that the transfer of trust will come to you publicly and privately. I think that's a really key recipe for young people. And leaders, you need to tell your young people how to do that.